Hi, I'm Heidi Harriet. Welcome to Doggone Good Information, and welcome my co-host, Tommy Fahey.
Hello, Heidi.
We're together for
We're
this
in person.
episode. Yes, Tommy's down in Florida, visiting me in sunny Florida, so we get to do this one together. And boy, do we have a sensational interview. We're going to get right into it because it's just awesome. Chris from Pinnacle Pets is going to talk with us about a program called Canine Care Certification, where breeders are actually certified. But just a great conversation about what you really need to know and understand about particularly the dog world, but the pet world in general. So stay tuned. Absolutely phenomenal interview.
Some doggone good information.
For sure.
Hello, happy to be here, Heidi. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And of course, Tommy's here as well, the fellow Missourian. So
yeah.
You guys are right down the road from each other.
Basically neighbors.
In the
Pretty much. We're if you're in Missouri, we're all part of the Show Me State.
There you go.
That's right. So I'm excited to have you on because on our dog podcast, Doggone Good Information, we talk a lot about pet ownership and that. And I push back hard against the adopt, don't shop movement and the goal is to put hashtag, there's more to the story. So, the shelter overcrowding and you shouldn't go to a breeder or all that, the puppy mill. There's so much more to the story and so much more in depth. So I love what you guys are doing. It's Pinnacle Pets, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Mm-hmm.
And why don't you tell us what you do? Because I love the fact that you're actually looking at certification for breeders to push back against this, the stigma of breeders.
Yeah, so we're pushing back against it. I mean, because it's conflict marketing, right? It's you got to provide a bad guy and you got to provide a solution and you got to be able to do it in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And just like you said, there's so much more to it. Excuse me, it's such a diverse network of people that you work with. And, it in the past, excuse me, there was this, I would say almost this wall or this iron curtain, if you will, that separated a breeder from the customer, from somebody who's buying the pup. And it was out of fear. And I think it was out of, fear of, oh my gosh, what if they don't need, my services as far as a broker or store anymore? Or, what if, what the end consumer obviously can't understand the day-to-day life of a breeder and what they do. And so that was really kind of where we founded. I've been in this business since, over 20 years now. And that's where we kind of founded Pinnacle Pet. We wanted to really remove that iron curtain, if you will, and really, take that leap of faith that if you educate the customer on what their questions are, and give them solid, provable information whenever they ask the standard internet required questions of where does your puppy come from, or is this a puppy mill? But really almost become a marketing platform for the breeders that work with us. We found that we built quite a bit of loyalty. We provided a place that breeders were proud to do business with. They're proud to be associated with, and stores were as well. And so that grew into us wanting to do more, as much as we possibly could with the breeders, whether that be, OFA, which is the Orthopedic Foundation for Animals. We put together clinics to where you can do some OFA testing on your breeding stock. We work with AKC on some of that. We do some of our own. So anything that really helped the breeder, helped the, made their kennel better, made the situation better for the pups in their care, the dogs in their care, was something we really suck our teeth into, up to and including, the Purdue program. When they started studying commercial breeders, it was something that we wanted to be a part of. And so we jumped in with them, helping them out in 2015. And, and now we're, proud to be an integral part of, there are over 200 breeders that are certified by, Canine Care Certification that's, sponsored by Purdue University, a well-respected land-grant veterinary university. So, and I think that's really been my driving force. My oldest son now is a breeder. My youngest son is a dog trainer. My kids have grown up, understanding what it means to wake up in the morning and take care of some, a being that is completely dependent upon you. And I've seen him grow into men, responsible men. My 22-year-old son he's just a few payments short of, paying off his own home. He has his own business. And I mean, wonderful. His love and his bond with the first dachshund he got, and he named him Water Bowl when he was 7 years old because he liked sleeping in his water bowl. So that was the dog's name. That dog taught him responsibility. That dog taught him that, hey, before school, water bowl needs to be taken out, it needs to be fed, it needs to be make sure he's watered, his enclosure cleaned, and he's carried that responsibility, into, having a successful kennel. And he's the youngest and was one of the first certified kennels in Missouri, and still maintains one of the youngest certified kennels in the nation. So
I love the I've recently come across the Canine Care Certification, and it's because it's this whole stigma that I think this is so ironic that if you go to a pet store and purchase a puppy, that it's bad because you're not adopting a dog, and that we don't know where they come from. When I go to hearings or that, and I listen in on this stuff or see the press releases of the activists, they always say, we don't know where these puppies come from. And I don't laugh at that in a humorous way because it's very frustrating, but it's laughable because the only dogs we really don't know where they're coming from are the shelter dogs. And that doesn't make them bad. That just doesn't make them the choice for everybody. And when we take away the right for you to go to a pet store by banning them, I live in Pinellas County, Florida, as you know. Tommy happens to be visiting me, so we're doing the podcast together today instead of across the computer.
There's much better weather down there today than up here.
We're having a pig. He was at the beach today, so we're having a picture perfect day. It happens to be
Please ignore any potential scowls. So I'll try to keep the smile on.
Happens to be the second day of January, so we're ringing in the new year, right? But we have in Pinellas County, I think we have 6. We still have 6 pet stores, and they didn't ban them outright, but they grandfathered them. So. And I'm happy about that. But in Manatee County, right below us, they actually turned their ban over. I still need to get to that commissioner and chat with her. I'd love to have her on the podcast. I understand it was a particular woman, but it's just so frustrating. So now here comes a credible source like Purdue University and Dr. Croney, I think it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, you said 2015. This is not... like all of a sudden somebody decided to throw this out there to combat this. This is intelligent people who actually understand the science and the data and are looking at it, not from this emotional perspective with a singer over the top of it asking for your donations, but people who are qualified trying to do the best by the animals and ensure that there's ensure the quality, I guess. And I love that. I think this is a great program, and I believe that's something you've been doing by pairing credible breeders, which there are many of certainly, with the pet stores, right? Who will offer their puppies. So I'm thrilled about hearing about this and delving into it more. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it's kind of the societal norm now to present problems with no solutions.
Correct.
We just want to tell everybody what's wrong. Yeah,
identify a problem. Right.
Yes, just identify the problem and then hound it until it's just gone.
And make some money.
Exactly. Right. Make money on the market.
And that's what I mean. And I love you. I love at the start of you saying, there's more to the story because there's no way you can talk about, and obviously we specialize in puppies, but I don't care what breed or species it is. There's no way in that 30-second elevator speech that you can talk about all the good things that go into that.
Yes.
And, and spin it. And that's the hardest, what I found in this, and I'll call it a fight. My fight is just trying to get people to stop long enough to listen to what we have to say and look at the proof that we provide them. But again, you go back to almost societally today, it's one click. I just need that headline. I'm not, all your social media even says that, basically make your videos 20 seconds or less. Yep. I mean, our attention span is rapidly shrinking. And so it's not so much the message, because it's not so much the message that some of the national animal rights organizations are pushing. It's the time, if I can get somebody to give me just a little bit of time, and listen and look at, the evidence and the information we provide, their claims are easily disputed.
Yeah.
I mean, their claims are, I'm sure maybe in the 70s, 80s, it goes so far as to say maybe the early 90s. I mean, 30 plus years ago, there might've been some merit to it, but, farmers, agriculturally minded people, animal lovers, people who care for animals, have been conscious of science that comes out, more and more science that comes out, and they're incorporating it into their facilities. And so to rob them of that and to say that they're still doing a terrible job is, like I said, that it's easy to combat their message if somebody will just give us the time. If somebody will take time just to listen to your podcast and take more than that 20 seconds for the elevator speech, you walk away much, a much broader world. It's a much broader world.
I think that's what's so great about what you're doing, in creating these sort of standard operating procedures and certifications and the follow-up and the background information that we can track. You're creating solutions for the problem rather than just talking about a problem. Yeah. Nobody wants a puppy mill.
No,
nobody wants that.
Including breeders. Yeah.
Legitimate people don't want that.
I hate seeing that in the paper. I mean, we had just recently, just a few months ago, not too far from my main offices. I think he was 20 miles. He was unlicensed. He was out, selling puppies, and just, I don't even want to go over it now. I mean, atrocious. Police were called. A friend of mine's a sheriff's deputy. He was telling me what he's seen out there, and it broke my heart. But what hit the papers was just the word breeder.
Yeah.
And how terrible he was. And it's like, well, here they go again with that industrial sized roller paintbrush, and they're going to use the word breeder, and they're going to try to apply it to everybody in that category. And so it's that's part of the battle too every day, is to, hey, let's distinguish, just like barbershops, fast food restaurants.
I was just going to say, show me any industry or profession above reproach. There's quack doctors.
All good or all bad.
And there's wonderful doctors. There's lawyers that get a bad rap, and there are lawyers that are fantastic. Waitresses. I mean, that's what I say on the podcast too. What I think are reasonable people who may be duped by the animal rights groups, right? We're not going to reach the top of them. They're not interested anyhow. They're making multi-million dollars and, feathering their own nest. So I'm looking for the people who've been drawn in by PETA or HSUS or ASPCA or whatever, and really care about animals, but don't get our messaging as much because we're busy, frankly, taking care of animals and trying to do that work. But so I push back on that hard, because I say to them, anytime I encounter a person that's not an animal person that buys into this, and they say, well, I heard this. I say, what do you do? I'm a waitress. So there's a waitress who's horrific, who's robbing, taking the cards and robbing people. So you're all like that. I don't care what they say.
You all have to be.
Absolutely. People become more reasonable than they say, well, okay. I say, so you're a reasonable, smart person, and you're actually believing everybody who owns a circus elephant is horrible. Everybody who breeds a dog is horrible. When we get a chance with that message, we make strides. But again, a 7-second soundbite, a 20-second TikTok. But that's why I do the podcast, because it's my cathartic way to sleep at night and feel like I'm doing something to get the message out by interviewing folks like you. And,
a couple of weeks ago, and I'll have her remain nameless. I've done a lot of work in not just the animal, the breeding space, but we'll talk about later, I'm sure, but or a later date, the shelter space, and because it's animals, right? And I love dogs, and I want all dogs, whether they're purpose bred, or in a shelter. I think everybody needs to experience that human animal bond. But my work with it's brought me in touch with a lot of different people that I never would have thought that I would have met with. And one of them, it was just a couple weeks ago. And what she said to me was so profound. And I've actually used it in a couple discussions with folks. And that's first, when somebody comes at you and I guess they've kind of drank the Kool-Aid, is to ask them, hey, are you being passionate or compassionate? How about we start with some compassion first, and then we can work on your passion.
There you go.
And when she said that, it struck me like a hammer. I was like, I've coming up against people. I've come up against some very passionate folks, but they've seemed to have lost their compassion in finding that passion. So, and that's kind of stopped a lot of the discussion in its tracks. Is, hey, let's, can we be compassionate about your passion? Let's start with some compassion first for one another as humans, as people. And then we can probably get to the bottom of what you really think, unless you just don't want to. And then, like Tommy says, I just want to identify problems. Well, if you do, then I have no interest in spending time with you.
Yeah, there's no further discussion. You can't convince them.
You're not going to win. Yeah. Right. Yeah, you're not going to win. So there is no win. There is no stalemate. They're only looking for anarchy at that point.
I love the passion versus compassion.
Versus compassion.
You and I talked briefly, because I like to just do my interviews. I don't spend a lot of time on the phone with people, because the conversation I would have on the phone is a conversation I want to have.
We're having now.
Yeah, because I've interviewed a lot of people I know when I started the podcast, because like one of the first people was a person who's responsible for the most births of Asian elephants outside of Southeast Asia. He was who I had in mind when I started the podcast, because I hear him at lectures and elephant-related seminars. I want John Q. Public or Mrs. Smith, who cares about animals but has been drawn into PETA, to hear from this guy who says, we have to have elephants at zoos. We have to have elephants in the, amusement industry and everything, because they get trained and they breed better and all of it, there's just more to the picture. And
well, it drives people to the science as well. Yes. I mean, it drives,
that's why Tommy,
I guarantee you, there's probably not a veterinarian or a zookeeper that doesn't remember going and seeing the live, the in living, breathing creation of their passion as a child. I mean, that's usually what sparks that fire.
That's what I was just going to say. Ask a zookeeper or a vet, especially with exotic animals that you didn't see all the time. And they'll say, I saw that elephant at a zoo, and I found out you can make a career out of that. At the Elephant Managers Conference, you hear that all day long. Yeah. We're taking that opportunity away from people. And now with dogs, we've just become silly. I mean, we're just like, we've never seen dogs, and we've got to kind of sort through the scenario of dogs that are right for your families, dogs that aren't, and we've got a big dilemma with dogs that are in shelters, but they're not necessarily the most adoptable. And again, we've done many podcasts on that, and I'm sure you could speak to that. But I want to let you get to one of a kind of a new direction for your business, which you were alluding to, and in exposing more, not just dogs, but other animals as well. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So I guess it's kind of that natural, for us, I guess it's naturally our progression. I tell my staff all the time that we're terrible planners, but we're fantastic doers, right? I have no 5-year plan. I have no 10-year plan or 1-year plan for that matter. But everybody does, right? They see that opportunity for potential or for growth, and we do. And I mean, it started, 10, 11 years ago, just focusing on care of our, increased care of our pups, not just within our facility, but focusing on increasing care and increasing, just kind of really focusing on, some of the 5 freedoms and stuff at the breeder level, for the puppies, really increased health for the puppies that we've seen in our care. And when you have healthier puppies, you have a veterinarian that's not as busy. And so without a veterinarian that wasn't as busy, well, let's open up a clinic and let our veterinarian work and, offer some low cost stuff to our community that is in desperate need of help with pups. And, that led to, again, seeing a need, and we opened up a daycare and a training center.
I love it.
And opened up a second veterinary clinic, just as we've kind of identified these, hey, there's where we see kind of soft spots. It's like, hey, we have knowledge, let's expand there. And that led us to dealing with so many pet stores over the years. It's become a little disheartening that the only thing that they focus on is the puppies. It's the pet store experience, if you will, has slowly gone away. Some because, of the pressures of big box stores opening up in a community, some from the pressures of the national organizations, but some of it's just been, business owners identifying that, hey, people want puppies. They'll come to the store to buy puppies. And, that's an easier inventory to manage than, 700 different types of leashes and dog foods. And so you're seeing a lot or growth of the puppy only store. And, we're losing just like we talked about that experience of going to the zoo and seeing that elephant for the first time. I see it in legislation with some of the other groups I'm at. There's more and more pressure, because as the puppy goes, so does the rest of the pet trade. If you can convince a lawmaker to pass bills on a puppy, well, it will not be long between, birds, fish, you name it, the rest of them will start, because there's nowhere near as much support for the reptile trade.
We can't make people understand that either. I had the U.S. ARC Phil Goss on talking about.
Phil's he is a phenomenal wealth of information. What an amazing guy.
Check out that podcast, folks.
I'll be listening to that. Phil's he's passionate and so informative. Yeah. To Phil and being associated with our advocacy group up in DC, that's how I've got to know Phil, John Mack, some of these reptile guys, and it wasn't that long ago that, a friend of mine and I were sitting around at the trade show just kind of discussing, wow, it's sad. Where do you go for a bearded dragon? Where do you go for for some of the more, niche, but more exotic pets? And you have some of the box stores, the large box stores, but really you don't have an experienced staff that you can go to. You may buy a bearded dragon from a big box store, but when you go back in a month to ask him questions about, should I feed him a cockroach, or should I switch to dubia roaches, or should I, stick with crickets? Well, the kid that you bought him from is no longer there. Yeah. And so we, half joking, half serious, was like, we would love to take all the experience that we have and put together a pet store, put together, not just a pet store that we sell puppies, come here to buy a puppy, but a pet store is an experience that it encouraged, the kids, hey, you want to hold it? You want to pet it? I'm not going to pressure you to buy it. But I want you to hold it and I want you to pet it. And I want you to not be scared of the sun conures that climbs up on your fingers, not be scared of the boas that, wraps up your arm. Learn. And because one of those kids that's going to be their first experience. And that's going to be an experience that sets off, like you talked about, the next person that oversees the most Asian elephant births in the, outside of Asia.
Yeah.
I hope through our store that we open up in May, we've got a family, and they love snakes, and they come in once to twice a week, and their 5-year-old. She all but gives classes to other kids. She enjoys bringing in her snake that she calls Rosie, and she talks to other kids and shares her. She keeps her wrapped around her arm, and she talks about it. And that 5-year-old has probably got more. She has more responsibility,
right?
And she knows more, is more knowledgeable at 5 years old than probably most teenagers nowadays. I mean, she has to care for that animal, and her dad is instilled that, and she loves it, and she does it passionately and with compassion. So, so we opened up Summit Zoo in Lee Summit in Missouri, Lee Summit, just outside of Kansas City. And we try to cover everything. I mean, we put in a koi pond, folks can sit and just watch koi. We've got the full fish department, puppies, small animals, birds, reptiles, spiders, and it's just, and we call it the zoo, and Summit Zoo, because we want it to be that type of experience that if you want to leave and buy one of those animals, you can, but if you want to come and just play with a puppy or watch the snakes crawl around, you do that as well, and so we opened that full line pet store because it's just, with all the stores that we've dealt with, I see that that's becoming a dying business, and there's so much to be learned about animals and animal care, all of them, at a pet store. So, gosh,
Chris, that's the part for me that, I could I don't own my horses anymore. I had some neck and nerve damage in my hand, so I was having trouble with more of the heavier stuff, which goes along with horses. So, and my family doesn't own any elephants at the moment or that. So I could kind of walk away and find another thing to devote my time to, foster kids or something. But I know that if we don't stay in this, we collectively, the animal experts, are the people who truly have the compassion and understand how this changes our society, not for the better, taking animals out of our life, that it's changing the culture of the fabric of our country and the world. So I try to hang in there and keep telling this story, because this is what provides people discipline. I always say the 4-H kids and the farm kids aren't, and Marla Calico, who runs the IA, International Association of Fairs and Expositions, right there in Springfield. So she's got an ag background. And she said she's had principals say to her, these aren't the kids who come in and are in trouble, right? No. These are the kids who have responsibility, have an understanding the world is bigger than them. And when you raise an animal, it's reward and discipline and progress, if it's an animal you're training. So they have an understanding that it's not all warm and fuzzy and it's not all pretty. It's very...
And it's not all me.
Very real, Yeah.
They give, they're givers, and they learn to give.
And we need that more than ever in our society, and it's what's being taken away. And to your point, if they could take away pet stores and start to take animals out of our lives, if they get dogs, everything else, I mean, it's just a domino effect. And by the way, I ask this all the time: if we spay and neuter every pet, and we can't go to a pet store and buy a pet, and we're going to put breeders out of business, it's easy to do the math. Give 15 years, let's just round it. How many years before we have no pets? Why don't intelligent people
well under 15?
Yeah, I don't understand that.
America's need for pets right now, 70 to 80% of all households has a dog. If we just look at dogs, 70 to 80% have a dog. The replacement numbers based off of ASPCA's, APPA's, University of Mississippi's, a number of credible sources. Yeah. The replacement number is 8 million pets a year.
Yep.
8 million. So of those 8 million, we know about 5 to 6 of them come through shelter or rescue programs. Every one of those are spayed and neutered. None of those are going to reproduce. So somewhere around 1 million or less is from professional breeders. So it will not take long. You're looking at an 8-year turn that if let's spay and neuter everything, we're going to be without pets in 8 years. We're going to be without dogs in 8 years.
Yeah, exactly. And so you just identified something else that nobody will talk about that we talk about on this podcast. Shelters, there's a shortfall. We're told everywhere. And yes, some shelters are overcrowded. But I had Patty Strand on as well, who I know you know from National Animal Interest Alliance. Wonderful resource for keeping the shelter numbers and the importation of over 1 million dogs a year, where we've created a market in other countries, and they had to ban 113 countries, the CDC, from imports because of falsified rabies and diseases. Nobody tells that story. They go on TV and cry and say shelters are overcrowded. Hashtag, there's more to the story. A lot more. There's a shortfall of adoptable pets and pets being able to be purchased in this country. And nobody but, these smaller things, my little podcast and you folks and Naya are talking about that. And we get vilified for talking about it, by the way. Right. But as Megan Kelly says, it's my podcast, so I don't care. I don't have a sponsor right now. I can say whatever I want to.
I'm sponsoring myself. Yeah. And it's such and we're not far. I remember a story, and this is, again, one of the things that kind of led to the passion I say we, because I think it's sad that we're all in the same pool, right? Whether it's the nationals or shelters or we all say we care about animals. So, shame on us for being quiet for so long, us being some of the industry side, shame on us for being, quiet and not standing up and saying, hey, that's not me, so shame on us. So I put everybody in that same lump, but, we've made it. Because of that silence, we've made it, we've demonized that want. We've made it to where if you didn't do it this way, then obviously you're a mean person. And what I mean, if people are nowadays ashamed of saying they purchased the breed that they want. And it really hit me in 2019. My father passed away in January of 2019, and he had a poodle, and my father's wife had passed away in 2017. And so Chemo is this poodle's name, and Chemo became my dad's everything. Little black poodle. And I have not over my 20 plus years in the industry, I've had hands on, I don't know how many thousands of dogs and animals. To date, I have not met a dog that is more pampered and spoiled than this dadgum poodle. Because Dad would go home on lunch break and make Chemo. He would have lunch with Chemo. Dinners were with Chemo. Chemo was his everything. And when my dad passed away, the dog was actually depressed. I mean, we had to wean him off Anna. He wouldn't eat. It was atrocious. I couldn't leave him by himself. We had my son had graduated from high school in 2019, and we had a big RV trip planned. And I couldn't go on this RV trip. I had to take Chemo with me because, he was still, he was depressed that Dad was gone. And so we had ended up in an RV park in Dolores, Colorado, a beautiful RV park. I wish I could remember the name of it. The gorgeous RV park. And I was walking Chemo, and there was an older couple who was walking a really, really pretty Brussels Griffon. Jack Nicholson, as good as it gets. I mean, little monkey dog, folks call them.
Yeah.
But beautiful Brussels. And I'm like, oh, wow, that is a beautiful Brussels. And the first words out of their mouth was, we rescued him.
It's a rescue.
Yeah. You found a breed perfect Brussels Griffon, which even in my line of work is a pretty rare breed, at a rescue facility. And my response to him was like, oh, really? I bought my poodle, and whenever they then realized that, oh, we're in like company, they did the whole kind of turn, look behind, and was like, oh, we bought him too from a breeder. I'm like, what's wrong with that? You get the breed that you wanted that fits your family. Its characteristics fit what you were looking for. And I'm guessing that you did your homework and found a breeder that you were comfortable with, and you purchased the dog from. There's nothing wrong with that, but we've made that a problem.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so.
Come on, Tommy, say what you say.
About the rescues?
Yeah.
People like to say it's a rescue. Is that a breed? That's not a breed.
Right.
And
did you rescue it? Did you get it out of a flooded ditch? Did you get it out of a burning building?
That's what Tommy usually says. Did you run into a burning building and get this dog?
You purchased
what
that
danger
dog.
did you save that animal from?
Yeah.
Yeah, you purchased it from a shelter or a breeder, but you still purchased it's still retail, you know.
Yeah, even if it's a rescue, you still paid money to a entity to take ownership of that animal
and receive something. And
unless you ran into the burning building and got the dog, you did not rescue the dog.
Yep. But it's sad how society's so programmed to that, right? I mean, we've got one of the things with Canine Care Certification is you have to have an established retirement program, because that's one of the questions that folks have asked breeders in the past is, what happens when you're done breeding? When they're done breeding, what do you do with them? And so let's answer that question. Hey, we breed for a specific amount of time. Being mindful of peak breeding and making sure that the mom stays in optimal health. We want to retire her before she because oddly enough, dogs are not too dissimilar from people. The older you get, the higher your risk, the higher risk of complications with pregnancy. So we want to retire them before we start to fall off that cliff and have a higher risk. And there is a number of rescues, a number of them that are more than happy to take a dog from a breeder, a perfectly healthy insert breed here from a breeder, and then go and market it as a rescue. Yeah. And do with it as you will. I mean, National Mill Dog Rescue is one out of California, and she is probably one of the most atrocious offenders. She will sit at a breeder's house, have a cup of coffee with them, pay some of them she doesn't, take their retired breeding adults and, tell them how amazing and how awesome they are. But literally the name of her organization is National Mill Dog Rescue. And then she Facebooks, oh, look at the dogs that we saved. Lady, you didn't save them from a thing.
She's better at marketing.
Nothing.
And she's getting funds
she makes
for that.
Good money and has a really nice house. Yeah. And so we opened up our own adoption. We called it A Dog's Dream. And, we had one of my staff, their mom was like, just innocently, because that's the nomenclature that society's taught them. She shared a Facebook post that we had, was like, oh, hey, my daughter works here. Go look at their rescue dogs. And we started getting increased traffic. And it's like, no, we're not going to market these as rescue dogs. We're going to tell a breeder's story. This dog worked. It is now 5 years old. She raised 4 or 5 wonderful litters. She's happy. And she's ready to chill out on the couch now.
Yeah.
So she's retired. She's a retired breeding dog. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Because I think there's room for all of us. There's some people that want an adoption dog. They want to roll the dice and save somebody. They for whatever reason. There are people who want puppies, but I think there's also people out there that are looking for that breed specific dog that don't have the time to raise a puppy. Why can't we all work together in that beautifully symbiotic way of, hey, I don't care how you bring a dog into your life, just make sure it's done the right way and from the right people, whether it's adoption, whether it's purchasing, whether it's getting it retired from a breeder or a puppy. I don't care. I just want to make sure you have the knowledge and the sources to take care of it, and the people you got it from have the knowledge and sources to take care of it.
For sure.
Chris, I understand that the Canine Care Certification, which again goes out to certified breeders, there's some standards, and there are people who come and inspect. I understand there are more breeders who want to be part of the program, and there aren't actually enough inspectors at this point to keep up. Is that the case?
Yeah, that's the choke point. So I mean, they're outcome based standards. Dr. Crony, and kudos to her and her team. Yeah. Because it's a hot button topic. They wanted to, a lot of folks won't even go into the commercial breeding space because it just, they're not good. They don't want to deal with the potential fallout. And so her and her team bravely went in and started doing studies. I mean, they didn't, they took studies based on, food, stress levels, behavior, and really studied how dogs, both the adults and the puppies behaved at these kennels. Excuse me. And then wrote a set of standards that are outcome based and are peer reviewed. So it's not just it's not, oh, I don't want my dogs on this type of flooring because it just doesn't feel right. It's peer reviewed. It's here's the science behind it. Here's what we've studied. Here's what we found. All of it can be found on Purdue's website. All their white papers, they're all published, and they put together this set of standards that not only takes into account the science behind raising dogs, but also social expectations, such as retirement, such as, I can't think. It's a pretty thick book, but
yeah.
So she takes into account both the outcomes for the dogs and what society looks at and inspects. And as these set of standards, a breeder can request the set of standards. They're sent to them. And we have a team. We have a team that we help. Again, I've been involved with them for 8 years. One of the things that we found that really kind of helped breeders was almost having that translator between scientific speak and layman's terms.
Yeah.
And because they're all scientific standards. So we developed a liaison program that I've got a staff that is basically, if a breeder wants to do, if they want to do Canine Care Certification and they're having some issues with it, they can contact our liaisons and they can kind of be that in between, that medium of, okay, hey, here's what it says, here's kind of what they mean. Here's how that applies to your kennel. And, so right now there's one company called Validus, and they have a team of auditors that are trained by, Dr. Kearney's research team, because you have to be able to assess the dog's behavior. You have to be able to understand the science that goes into this. You can't be just, hey, I'm a guy off the street. I like dogs. I want to become an auditor. There's a pretty significant amount of training that goes into it.
Sure.
And that's our bottleneck right now, is we have over 200 kennels that are certified, but I think we have 300 in the hopper. There's 300 that are waiting for, and this is growing, right? We're growing nationwide. We're growing. Again, if you go, I think there's a map on Canine Care Certified's website that shows, kind of where some of these breeders are. And it's I think we've only a handful of auditors, and as more and more breeders are finding out about it, hearing about it, and scheduling their audits, that's our bottleneck, is because, again, it's, one of the things that really is really powerful about Canine Care Certification is it's a voluntary program. They're not being forced by the government to do it. They're not being required to do it to get a license. It's completely voluntary. And the people who inspect them, their jobs aren't reliant on, the people who wrote the rules. Their jobs is literally a third-party auditor. They come in and say, okay, here's how this kennel stacked up against the standards. And now it's Canine Care Certified, the folks with Canine Care, it's their job to say, hey, you passed or you didn't pass. So it is a volunteer program that is backed by third-party third-party verification. And it's some of the most, stringent and, well thought out set of standards in the country. Nobody goes as deep as not just the food we feed, but the behavior that the animals exhibit, and we want to make sure that all those things are covered. So, that the animal, again, is, really, when it boils down to it, that the animal can show you that, they've got the 5 freedoms, the freedom from hunger, the freedom to behave normally. I mean, all the 5 freedoms of animal welfare, and they can exhibit those and be happy.
Yeah.
It's a great solution for a big problem.
Yeah.
And it was thought of by breeders. I mean, kudos to it was Indiana breeders. It was Indiana and Amish folks that, went to Purdue and said, hey, can we we want you to do a seal of approval.
Yeah. Amish folks. Can you imagine? They get vilified for their animals. All the time.
Yeah. Not for the animals, for everything. I mean, talk about a vilified group of people, but they're the ones that brought it up. And when Purdue went into it and said, hey, this is an Indiana problem. This seems to be a nationwide problem. And are you sure you want us to dig into this? Because, some of you aren't going to make it. They're like, yep, come on down. And that's when we got involved. Whenever they were like, hey, we see this as a national issue. Would you be interested? And I'm like, yeah. Sign us up. Let's see what we can do better.
And that's what people need to understand. That happened with circuses and exhibited animals, probably 20, 30 years ago now. I was working for a trade association, and a guy from Dr. Ted Friend from Texas A&M University was intrigued with the information. He was doing agriculture, cows and stuff, and he wanted to see about the behavior of the circus elephants and big cats, all the hubbub of how terrible, and just by nature of traveling and all of that. So he undertook a study, and I was the one who had to convince our folks, our exhibited animal owners, to participate. And we were, I had to tell them the science is going to be the science. Like, he's not doing this because he likes us or because he dislikes us. He's doing it because he's a scientist. And he's one of my Animal Tales podcasts, Dr. Ted Friend. And I had to go to our people and say, we don't know how this is going to come out with the science. We think as animal experts, we know how to care for our animals, but let's continue to have updates and science and best practices. And not surprisingly, it came out and said the transport vehicles were fine, just like people with horses. You know how to keep your horses cool, how the ventilation. The elephants were fine. The big cats were fine, all of them in transport. They ingested the little things that do the hormone levels for them. The only hormone stress, the levels they saw, were when an elephant had some issue with her foot and she was kept out of a show. When she heard the music and part of the herd, not all of the herd, went to perform, she was pissed. She was like, wait, it's my music. I mean, it seems ridiculous, but, you know, elephants, you say, load up, Myrtle, and she goes and steps in the truck on her own. You know, it's like road trip, you know. But I had to convince them, like the Amish, saying, I give them so much credit because they're saying, let's see what it's all about. Let's see what the science says. Let's see what it's about. Those are the people with integrity. That's the integrity.
There's breeders out there that don't want to. There's breeders out there that you know, they don't know better than I do.
And we're okay to say, okay, you shouldn't be in business. And that's how I felt about our people as well. Yep. There are so many animal cruelty laws. People are like, we need more. We don't need more. No. We'll stand beside you and could encourage you to prosecute true animal abuse. Right. But at this point, anybody who owns anything and doesn't use love and cookies for their dogs is considered animal abuse. And it couldn't be further from the truth. And we're getting to the point that animal ownership is considered bad, you know, and to your point. So, I'm all about what this certification thing is. And if there are bad people out there, by all means, let them be prosecuted. You just mentioned somebody who you said they found out and it was bad. And it seems like the laws worked, right? I own a dog right now who was taken away from some moron who had 35 poodles and, you know, was trying to breed. Well, he didn't know what he was doing. And you know, I say this kind of lightheartedly, or he had poodles. If you're going to be a moron with dogs, don't pick the dog that has the hair that needs the most upkeep. I mean, geez.
There's a saying in our side that a beagle mom can have 10 puppies and raise 11.
Yeah.
Beagles are fantastically hardy. Yeah. If you're going to start with the beagle.
So he has all these doodles, and I have the standard poodle that was the baby daddy. So when they confiscated the animals, They sent the pregnant mamas, I think there were 4 or 5 of them, to homes, right? Well, guess what? All those puppies that were born in a home in fantastic surroundings are rescues. Right? It's like,
of course,
absolutely.
They were born in perfectly good conditions, but you know, again, they got taken away from him. A family member turned him in. So
because
it does work.
We gotta spend time, and again, that's. People have got to be more invested because of those 20-second elevator speeches and making it seem simple. A breeder doesn't have a day off.
Yeah.
You know, a good breeder is, again, and that's dogs, cats, elephants, horses. A good breeder works 7 days a week, 52 weeks out of the year, you know, and it is a hard job. And it is a roller coaster of emotions. You have to be unbelievably intelligent or knowledgeable about the breed you're in. Again, you know, that sounds like a fellow that was trying to raise dogs that were smarter than he was.
Oh yeah.
You know, and so it you know, and because we're not willing to have the in-depth conversations, a lot of the general public think, oh, well, I can do that. I mean, we got a request to the pet store about, hey, I have an inquiry about your, I think it was a dachshund. Can I breed it? No, you absolutely cannot. You know, you know, how about you learn and you know, find out what it means to own a dog first before you. Yeah. I mean, if your first venture is, hey, I want to buy an animal and start breeding it.
No,
that's a no.
Yep.
You know, and And if you get rid of the experts, breeders, the keepers, then that's what we have left. It's
That's
the people
right.
who don't know what they're doing. And you think animal welfare is bad now. What happens when you get rid of the experts?
Yeah.
It just becomes, ooh.
So
It's
let's talk
terrible.
now about a group that is there, Pet Advocacy Network, right? A group that's there to, I believe, well, you could tell us what the mission is, but they're there to support proper pet ownership and that type of thing. So
it's an organization that's been around for about 50 years. It was formerly called PJAC, the Pet Industry Joint Advisory Council. And we did a rebrand last year just to kind of, PJAC, while PJAC was a memorable name, the Pet Industry Joint Advisory Council is not exactly soft, fuzzy, and doesn't really roll off the tongue. And so, we did a rebrand of the Pet Advocacy Network. And that name really sums up what we do is we advocate for pets and pet ownership. And that's all pets, we are a political group. We do some lobbying and we have certified lobbyists and we lobby on behalf of pets and pet ownership. There's a lot of time, money, and effort spent with the CDC on proper health protocols with pets.
yeah, for
With
sure.
HABRI, the Human Animal Bond Research Initiative, and how pets, help pets better our lives. And it's a constant fight. It's an organization. I'm vice chair now. I should in March take over as chair of the group, and we have a budget of about $2 million. And we're going up against HSUS's $160 million, ASPCA's $248 million.
Yeah.
Best Friends, then they're $200+ million. I mean, collectively, we're taking on and doing a pretty darn good job holding our own against three organizations, with a net worth north of 400, almost 500 million, and we're doing it with a $2 million budget.
Because you've got expertise, true expertise, and data, statistics, science on your side. So once you get past the rhetoric,
all we need is that time to be able to get into a legislator or somebody's office and show them, hey, like to plug their podcast. There's more to this story. It's not just the adopt no shop narrative. There's so much more. There's economics and pet health and everything else on the line with this, and just give us a minute to kind of show you. I mean, California is a perfect model of a state that does a full ban on pet stores and does a full ban on breeding. Well, what you have, and that's pet ownership hasn't decreased at all, but the AVMA reports multiple illnesses that were previously eradicated in the United States. Distemper, distemper one, rabies is running rampant, and there's over 180 unregistered now rescues. And when you've taken away the regulation from a market, nature and business itself abhors a vacuum. Somebody will fill that place. And when you remove the regulation, the people who fill that place is the people who are not regulated and therefore no longer have to apply by the rules. So now you have businesses that aren't paying any taxes, that are bringing in dogs from across the border that have no vet checks, that are dumping them into the public, under false pretenses of, rescues or adoptions or whatever they call them. And now we have more sick dogs, more heartbroken families in the state of California. We can show that with science. And this is what happens when you remove regulation. Good regulation is a good thing, and we're supportive of it. But, let's
I always say, when is the last time you saw a herd of Maltipoos running down the street,
Well, it depends on who you ask, Heidi. I mean, if you ask animal rights, it's rampant.
I know. Where is this place?
We've got rabid Brussels Griffons here in Kansas City, just all over the streets. If only somebody come in and clean them up. No,
we're laughing, but it's
their joke.
Ridiculous.
But, that's kind of the story that they spin. Is that there's just poor animals, and we don't have a pet overpopulation problem anymore. We have a logistics problem.
Yes.
Shelters and places in the South are. They do have shelters that are full, not because there's too many animals, but because we don't have adoptable animals at all.
Yes.
And while shelters in the Northeast and in the North are begging, population centers are begging for well cared for animals. So, I mean, finding a way to fit those needs and suit those needs happy and in the way the animal, and again, identifying what's a good dog. I mean, identifying what's an adoptable dog.
Adoptable, yeah. I got it.
Yeah,
I got bit by a pit bull. It really went after me. It just didn't break the skin. 2 weeks later, that pit bull was online saying, "Adopt me. I'm a great family pet." And I told the woman, this dog should not be adopted, only because I gave her a little energy as a dog trainer and said, "Hey, you're not going to pull me out of here." She looked up at me like, "Oh no, not today." And here's another
it was just
one.
A couple of years ago.
Why did COVID?
In the Northeast.
Yeah.
In the Northeast, there was that lady. She worked with one of the nationals. I forget. She was a state director for one of the nationals, and her dog actually killed her grandmother's friend.
I know. Oh, the stories.
She's advocating for, he doesn't need, we don't need to put him down. Your dog murdered a human.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's a carnage they will repeat too. Yeah.
And I'm sad that its life led him to that point. That's terrible.
Yes. Agreed.
But I value human life over his. And that's where we've kind of gotten, fuzzy nowadays. It's just crazy.
Also, to the extent that we're bringing dogs in, COVID, they showed all the empty shelters because planes weren't flying. You couldn't import people or animals. Import. Yes, there were more people took animals home, but a big piece of that was
the supply chain.
The supply chain dried up temporarily. And when I tell people that, they actually have a bit of an aha moment. But I was like, you want proof in the pudding, There it is.
You remove 1.2 to 2 million out of a supply chain of 8. Yeah.
Cute adoptable dogs.
That's 25%. Yeah. You remove 25% of any supply chain.
Yeah.
You're going to have shortages. I mean, it happened with cars, trucks, planes, automobiles, and dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, so for sure. That's not an aha moment. That it should be a, hey, oh, that makes sense. Yeah. So,
and the thing is, these are like very smart people who generally, smart people, they make good decisions in their life, but the animal rights groups have done such a good job of vilifying anybody with animals, and they're not animal experts, they're fundraising and media experts. And I see, as I'm talking to folks like you on the podcast, the Phil Goss, Patty Strand, those Mindy from the Cavalry Group, it's like, it's time. We know we need to come together in a bigger way, but that's why I'm so happy to hear you're the incoming chairman, because of the way you think about this topic. And it's
collectively it's better. Yeah, collectively it's better because it's identifying that. I'll be the first to admit that 10 years ago, was I doing everything possible best for the dogs? No, probably, especially with the knowledge I have today.
Yeah. And
10 years from now, I hope to learn even more that says, hey, I can do a better job here. But you're right. You hit on the marketing side. My father retired after his wife passed in 2016. And he came to work for me part-time. He moved up from San Antonio, Texas.
Awesome.
He came to work for me part-time. And it was fantastic. Dad was in the Marriott supply chain. I didn't get to really grow up around him. It was a long family story, but it meant a lot that he came and, just kind of part-time and helped me with staff. And he was about 3 months in, and Dad came walking in proudly with his monogram, had his name on it, Rex F. Humane Society of the United States, tote bag.
Yes, oh, geez. I know.
Dad.
I know.
What in the name of all that is holy is that? Well, son, I'm in the business now. I just thought I'd help and do my part.
I know.
But
misinformed.
I mean, this is exactly. This
Good
is a gentleman
marketing.
that he knows what I do. He knows what I do. He's supportive and he's proud of his son. But yet, and this is a man that he worked with a very large hotel chain, ran resorts and hundreds of employees. I mean, he's a very educated man. Fell into for $19.99 a month.
Yeah.
I can help my son out with the animal business.
Yeah, exactly.
And he was proud as peaches for doing it. I mean, he'd come just strutting in with that bag. I'm like, oh, father.
Yeah, we need to talk.
Let us have a conversation. So, but it's a fantastic marketing. It's unbelievable marketing. If somebody will stop for just it's not the message, it's the time. And
My
just give
friends
us
who
a-
are lobbyists say
Give us-
that they hear so much more from the other groups, the legislators, of course, the media pick up that narrative. And it's just those of us who are in the animal world, it's hard to give up the time to go spend a week in DC or whatever it is. And lobbyists who aren't like in-depth animal people, it's not quite the same message. I always say, got to have a true animal person beside them to get them in the door. But it's an emotion, and it's a story that, and it always goes well. I mean, it's just there's not enough of it. And so thankfully, you'll be part of, working with Pan as well. And I love
live and breathe it every day, and it's something I'm looking forward to, and I'm looking forward to. It's because we've worked on finding our way, and I'm proud to say that we're probably one of the first kind of from the dog industry, and just really kind of pushing that narrative of collaboration and hey, we've got to move forward in a bigger, better way.
Yeah. Well, I love what you do. I love your business, and I thank you for talking to us about it today. And I'm sure we'll have you on again. But this is a conversation we just need to keep hammering away at.
Absolutely.
So I thank you so much. Well, Tommy, I say it all the time on Animal Tales as well, but go see for yourself. And he gave some great advice about, or great information about the certification program, but also talk to the folks at pet stores. The smaller the pet store, the more likely it might be family run.
Yeah.
And you'll actually get some really good advice. But just stop vilifying people. Step back. Take a beat. If there is something wrong, there are laws in place to handle it. And if all is going well, let's stop vilifying good people for wanting to be involved or devote their life to animals. It's just...
Yeah. They've created like I said, a solution for a big problem. So now we have an option to look at really good places to find dogs.
It really is. Ongoing solutions are the way to go. And so now we're up to our pet peeve, and we've been together this week and saw something. Both of us came to this without talking to each other. So go for it, Tommy.
Yes. So my pet peeve for this week is we've been staying at a hotel, and in the hotel lobby, there were a lot of dogs. Over the weekend. I think I counted about 5 total. And generally speaking, I would say that they were well behaved. But there were a couple of times where they were barking or they were, loud in the lobby. And having them in that public space is my pet peeve. It's a public space that I don't feel like they should be in.
An indoor public space.
Yes, they're inside in the hotel lobby, which is an wide open room with the breakfast area, the continental breakfast area available. So it's not a separate room where the food is put out. It's all one big open space. And there's some sanitary concerns. Some people don't like dogs. They don't want to be around dogs. And then having multiple dogs, you always have the potential for something to go wrong, especially if they're not well handled or well trained. So I think, it's just, there's an opportunity for a lot of disaster there.
They were jumping up, barking at each other at times.
And up on the furniture, there's a nice couch area, sitting area, and the dogs are up on there. Well, what about the next person that comes in that doesn't want to sit on a couch
has an
covered in
allergy.
fur or has an allergy? And we even you went and asked about the manager. Asked
of course
about
I did.
Well, because what are the rules and regulations when it comes to that?
Because we were eating breakfast, and there were several dogs, and of course they let him on the long leash because they might want to visit you, Tommy. I'm like, I give him the stink eye, like, I don't want your dog to visit me. Pull it back. There you go.
I watched one lady come off the elevator. And she went to turn left to go outside, and the dog went right to go into the lobby. And I heard her say to the dog, "Oh, you want to go that way?" And she just followed her dog out into the lobby rather than going out the door to the dog area where she was wanting to take it. So it's just a mentality difference that I don't quite agree with. But the general manager of the hotel said that the regulation is that they cannot be in the area where the food is served. Because that's technically more of like a restaurant, considered a restaurant area. Is that correct?
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. But in this particular hotel, the way it was laid out, it's one wide open room. There's no real you know.
The hair could easily fly over
Yeah.
there. The dog, if it was loose, could easily go over there.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the people have their dog, and then they're going to the buffet.
Right.
And getting toast out or getting,
Yes.
I mean, you and I would sit in a horse stall and eat a sandwich without any problem, but it's a choice they're making for everybody.
Yes.
And that's my beef with it.
Yeah, I think that's the problem. And really that's the pet peeve is people not considering the concerns of others, not considering that there are other people involved in that situation.
Not everybody's so excited about your dog, even though
exactly.
it might be a lovely dog, but yeah.
And they were all cute and fluffy and how
They
lovely.
were.
But the next person may not feel that way.
Yeah. It was a Hilton brand hotel, and
Yeah.
there's a commercial with Paris Hilton. Don't leave your baby at home, you know.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay, don't, but put it in your room.
yeah.
Don't take it to breakfast.
That's not what I was going to say, but I think I'll go right into the trainer tip
There
now.
you go.
Maybe do consider leaving your dog at home, because are they having fun? Tommy and I talk about this often. Are you bringing the dog for you, or because the dog said, oh, I want to go into a really nervous environment and be in a room by myself, or be in my kennel in a room by myself? And it's never the animal's fault, which you've heard us say, but it is a challenge. And I tell people, my goal with my animals is to make sure that if I don't come home tonight, somebody can walk in my house, tell my animals to kennel up, or tell them to get in the car, take them home, and maybe 5 days later they'd be like, I wonder where Heidi is.
Yeah.
And I say that in a loving way, because I know that we don't have a crystal ball. If something happens to me and I can't keep my forever pets, they're going to be fine. Those are not the animals that go into harm's way in shelters or rescues. Those are the animals who your friends or neighbors or family members say, oh my God, I'll take those dogs.
Mm-hmm.
That's the case right now with my animals. People are like, oh, I would love to have your, I'll take Trooper, I'll take Trooper, I'll take. So, and my horses, same thing. That was important to us. So make sure your animals are well trained, that foundation training, but really consider whether you're taking them for them. There's a beach right near the hotel we were at, and we weren't staying together. We were at my daughter's wedding, and Tommy was gracious enough to be our wedding day coordinator. So we were all in the same hotel, but there's a beach nearby. So now you can't take your pets on the beach in most places in Florida. So now you want to go spend 6 or 7 hours out. So really think about why you're taking your animals, and make sure they're kennel trained. Make sure they're comfortable everywhere. I can take my dogs to a hotel. I choose not to, but they're pretty good about it. They're like, my dogs have the attitude like, road trip. Oh, where are we now? Let's check this out.
We
Trooper.
talked about that with me coming here. I could have brought Jimmy Dean.
He's well behaved.
Yeah. Did you see that?
You did.
But I could have brought him with me, but I chose not to because that would not be the best option for him. I knew coming here that there were going to be extended periods of time where I'd have to leave him, and he would be fine. I know that he would be fine, but he's a lot happier staying with my friends at home.
But because we know he's going to be fine, my dogs too were absolutely fine staying. The woman actually came to my home, but they were like, "Oh, who are you?" Not like, "Oh my God, where'd my mom go?" Or like Jimmy Dean, he's probably like, "Oh, I get a little vacay here."
Yeah.
I've
got great friends that he stays with. I kept their dog for them last week, and they kept him for me. Shout out to Joanne and Dari. Thank you for taking care of Jimmy Dean.
Yeah. So if your animal's well behaved, you don't have that stress of needing to take them anyhow, because they're going to be fine at home. And once she texted me a picture twice, I had forgotten to ask because I'm in the middle of a big wedding, but. It was like, oh, great. But I wasn't really concerned because I figured she'd call me, and I know they're going to be fine.
They'll be fine.
Yeah. Did you get a picture of Jimmy Dean this weekend?
I actually got a video of him playing.
Of course you did. Okay.
So he's doing great.
He's doing great. Okay. Yeah. You'll be home soon. All right. Well, we're glad you joined us, and we hope you will subscribe and rate and review the podcast. It's a new year, and we look forward to having you follow along. So, because we provide a lot of doggone good information.